Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Markets to Watch from Smack the Markets for week commencing the 24th of February. So as the coronavirus continues to spread over the weekend, it also continues to have a major impact on market sentiment in the world's financial markets. As we wake up in Europe this morning, we're seeing a big sell-off in US equity futures, and we're also seeing safe havens benefiting like gold and other precious sort of metals. So let's take a look at a few markets here that we're keeping a close eye on in the trading room at the start of this week. Now, if we come across to the US equity futures first of all, and take a look at the Dow, we can see the sort of moves that we've had since the market opened on Sunday evening. Now, at the moment, from a higher time frame perspective, this is sort of pulling the market back into sort of fair value areas, and I think the key sort of decision point areas are going to be around this sort of 28,000 sort of price point. We can see that the markets have found previous support structures around there in the past, but price action is fast approaching that area. If we come down to the daily time frame, we can see the sort of gap here that the markets put in over the weekend. Now, these gaps often get closed at some point in time, but not necessarily on the same day. We can see that just going back in time a little bit here, we had a similar situation where we had a huge gap in the market. Actually took some time before the market actually closed that gap, and and that may well be what we sort of experiencing at the moment. This gap may well be just sitting there in the markets for a period of time. At the moment, the market's just sort of taking out this sort of 28,320 level. If we start to sort of just look at the sort of structure around that sort of 28,000, and there's also a bit of structure around 28,200, which we'll take a look at on the lower time frames. But these sort of areas here, more importantly, sort of coincide with those higher time frame areas as well. Now, if we come down to the 4-hour time frame, again, just sort of zooming out of this, you can see sort of like where we are. So around 28, we're about 28, sort of 160, 170. There's previous support and resistance around there. And then below that, there's sort of a cluster of a number of structure points all around that 28,000 area. So again, looks like the market is looking extremely weak at the moment. Looks like these sort of levels may well be tested, maybe the first one in the Globex session before the US sort of opens. But what we'll be looking for here really is looking at opportunities for shorting the US equity futures as the market sort of presents opportunities on lower time frames. Just keeping in mind that about this sort of like open gap for technical traders as well. Now, if we come and take a look at the precious metals, gold is one that is really benefiting at the moment. This market moving on very, very strongly, as we can see. Now, at this moment in time, these higher time frames not looking sort of easy to trade because there's no sort of location, no sort of structure for stop locations. If you come down to sort of lower time frames, we can start to see some kind of sort of structure on here. So just what we're looking for really is just keeping an eye out for these sort of structure points if price sort of pulls back into them. So you've got sort of clusters of pivot points here tying up with moving averages, tying up with 61.8% fib clusters as well. So there's a number of things sort of where we have sort of clusters like this of technical analysis where if the market does retrace into these, they will be certainly a lot of technical traders will be paying very strong attention to these to look for turning points. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking for here on gold. Not looking at getting in on these big moves, but waiting for the retracements. Now, if we come and take a look at the currency markets here, a couple of markets that I think are looking sort of particularly interesting. One is the Aussie dollar, and one of the benefits of the coronavirus, or one of the outcomes of the coronavirus and the push to safe haven status, is that the dollar has been appreciating. Now, that has been having a major impact on the Aussie dollar. We can see that the Aussie here has sold off quite considerably over recent weeks. In fact, the market, if we take a look at this on the weekly chart, we can see last week's candle and that the current candle for this week so far has tried to move up, and at the moment it's kind of sitting very precariously around the low of last week's candle. Now, because of the trend that we've had here on this market, there's not a lot of structure around here for anybody looking at long positions on this. And indeed, I think if the market actually breaks underneath yet last week's low, it could open up opportunities for continued selling in this market. So if we come down to lower time frames, you can start to see, if we open this up on the 60, you can see that there are around these lows here that we've looked at. That's that sort of weekly low. We've also sort of got 3 tests of this level already tied up with lower highs forming in the market too. So I'm looking at opportunities breaking through this level and continued weakness there on the US dollar. Continued weakness there on the Aussie, taking advantage of the strength of the US dollar. Now, one of the other markets that is also worthwhile keeping an eye on, which is relatively similar, is the euro against the Swissy. Again, the Swissy been benefiting from sort of safe haven status as well at the moment. We can see that the euro has been extremely sort of weak here. And again, we can see that if we come right up to the monthly chart on this one, you can see that the market is right up against a very sort of technical level here on this market. Now again, underneath this price point, underneath this level, well, it doesn't really sort of leave an awful lot of structure in the way for significant move to the short side. And again, if we start to come down to the lower time frames, even taking a look at the 4-hour time frame, you can see that we've got quite a level forming there in price action. So again, looking at this, keeping an eye on this, because a breakout underneath this level and a breakout short on Euro Swissy could open up opportunities for a continued move to the short side. So there's a few markets there that we're keeping a close eye on in the trading room at the start of this week. I certainly hope it helps and look forward to speaking to you next time. Bye for now.